So, Sheffield United and Leeds are tied in the top two on 70 points in the Championship. Burnley, of course, just behind on 68. It looks like it's going to be a very close promotion race at the top of the No, not that. I've got that completely wrong. Where have I got that from? It's Sheffield United on 83 points, Leeds United on 81, and Burnley on 81. There we go. Got it right eventually. So it's very interesting to see where what happens with Sheffield United, because they've had this knack. I'm not going to live that down now. And they've had this knack of getting on the right side of tight games this season. And it's been fascinating to see how consistently they've been able to grind out results. But on Friday night, it was one of their best performances of the season. They beat Coventry by 3-1. A really accomplished display from Chris Wilder's side. So can they use that as ammunition going into the run-in to finish the job and ensure that they go into the top two, go into the remainder of the season with a top two finish? That's what we're going to discuss on this Championship podcast. Yes, welcome along to EFL Debate. If you enjoy these podcasts, which I'd be surprised based on the intro, you can get subscribed to us on YouTube and on Spotify. That would help us out a lot. For now, for the help that I clearly need, delighted to be joined by my co-host for the evening, Mr. Oli Mann from the Sheff United Way. Oli, how are you?
Yeah, I'm not too bad. I thought I'd been transported back in time about 6 weeks. I was like, these numbers make sense, but they make sense from a few weeks ago now. I mean, I'm sure United were in front of Leeds.
I had a completely different table in my head.
Yeah, you were. I think that is definitely a correct Championship table. I reckon it's a correct Championship table from about 35, 34 games, something like that.
Oh my goodness, I'm not going to live that one down. Right, Sheffield United are on 83 points. I mean, do you know what? It's partly because being on 83, it almost it sort of caught me out. Like Sheffield United being on 83 points before, with 7 games to go. I mean, normally in the Championship, you're doing well if you can get to 83 points over the course of the season. Quite often, that gets you top 2. So, hugely impressive, isn't it?
Fuming, Gab. I'm fuming. We should be home and clear. I should be able to sit on a beach sipping a pina colada, having a time of my life. Shouldn't be sat here debating these kind of things. Yeah.
And you've accumulated 85 points even.
We've accumulated 85 points, Gab. Yeah, I ran some of the stats on this the other day where I looked at United's points per game so far this season. And if United did just keep to their points per game, they would have accumulated just over 100 points. So it's really ridiculous how well United have done so far in terms of the results on the pitch, in terms of the way that they've been able to just grind out these results and keep winning games of football. I mean, like you say, it feels like a remarkable points tally. It's last season we were talking about that top 3 as being arguably the best top 3, the most competitive race. Well, this season, I think the points are almost exactly the same with 7 games to go. It is very much a comparable situation. And United, we've been brilliant, to be honest. There's been faults around some of the performances. I've slept on United as much as anybody because I've never been convinced. But after Friday night, it's hard not to be now because we do start to look like the real deal. And with that kind of points total, the amount of games that we've won, hopefully it's going to be a good end to the season.
Yeah, absolutely. I think because I think one of the reasons why maybe I've been caught out by it a little bit and is sort of partly because Leeds and Burnley have been so close to Sheffield United, so it's felt like you're in a tight promotion race rather than recognised like a Wolves, for instance, of a team that's gone steaming clear. But also maybe because the nature of a lot of performances have been so touch and go, it's felt like that for much of the season. When actually, if you looked at the points accumulated, to use that word again, it tells a completely different story.
It really does. And I think as well, the other thing that obviously feeds into that narrative in terms of how well we've performed is how tight the promotion race is. Because, I can wax lyrical about how good United have been, about how well we've done, about the points that we've won. But Leeds and Burnley are right there with us. Like, it's an exceptional top three in terms of the race. And it's taken a long time for any of us even to pull clear of Sunderland because of how well they've done and what a season they've had. So, yeah, it caught me a little bit by surprise when you start to look at the points and think, actually, 100 points might be on. Like, it's not out of the realms of possibility now. It's, for United, it's 6 wins from his last 7 games. Well, we've won, I think, 6 of his last 7. So it's not to say it isn't something we could do. I find it very unlikely, but it's that kind of thing now where you're looking upwards and thinking, these are 3 teams who could well all get 95 plus, and somebody's got to miss out.
Yeah, I mean, the big thing that stood out to me focusing on Friday night was the kind of variety that we're seeing in Tyrese Campbell's performances, Ollie, because on the one hand, he's drifting out to the left. He's doing that graft, the dog work to create space for other players. But in other moments, he's actually right there, slap bang in the middle, getting in on the end of things like a proper number 9. And I think, are we looking at the best of both worlds with Tyrese Campbell?
I think we are. Yeah, I've been so impressed by him. He came in on a free transfer in the summer and he's had a really difficult career. He's never got double figures in terms of goals before, mainly due to the injuries that he's just experienced time and time again whenever he's been really trying to get going. Obviously, a really sad personal tragedy over the summer as well, with his dad passing away. And so coming into this season, it does feel as though he's really found his momentum. He's really found a place that he's comfortable, and he's really playing like he's got something to prove and like he really wants to sort of kick himself forwards to realise the potential that he's got. And I've been so impressed with him. Of all the players in our team, I actually feel like he's the one most naturally suited to the Premier League. He feels like a player who can do the job that any team in the Premier League is going to want to ask of him. He's a goal scorer who can finish. That finish on Friday night is so underrated. It is absolutely blasted at him, and he just calmly slots it towards the goal, knocks it into the corner, uses the power that's come on it from the cross. He's having a fantastic season. He really is, and he's really a massive standout for us. And if we are to be the team that do get themselves over the line, a lot of it will come down to Tyrese Campbell's boots, because he really has been fantastic.
Certainly has. What was I going to say? I'm loving City Pack at the moment, Ollie. I feel like we've got to make sure we talk about him, because that almost twist to the boot that he produced for one of those passes for I think the chance that he created that just completely opened the game up. I mean, that's a player playing with real flair at the moment, isn't it?
He is, yeah, and he just seems to grow in confidence week after week. Like, you've seen it through the season. When he first came into the team, you saw a player who was sort of energy. That's what he brought when he first came into the team, start of the season. He was bringing energy to everything. And you thought, what does he do well? Does he pass well? Does he beat a man well? No, but what he does is he's always pressing. He's always making sure that he's a nuisance, a disruptor. But as the season's gone on and as he's really built his confidence, and I think he now thinks of himself as, no, I'm not a youngster coming into this team proving myself. I'm an established star player for a team at the top of the championship. And he proves that now week in, week out. All of a sudden, he can beat a man. He's got a little bit of skill to get around his man. His passing just looks so much more incisive in terms of getting players free, finding the space. But he still does that dog work. He's still sort of the energy. He's still sort of, what do they say? He's in the engine room, and he's the one who's really powering us. So there's so many things to like about his game. Obviously, I know we touched on him last week, but I do think he seems to go from strength to strength every single week. And every time I think, have I gone too big? Have I got carried away? Am I maybe seeing something with red and white glasses on? He proves me wrong with a performance like on Friday, where I am right to be as excited about this player as I am, because I really do think he's got everything to take him to the next level and to really have a really good career, maybe towards the top of the Premier League.
Yeah, let's hope that's the case. I think I'm mindful that we're looking at a small sample size with City Peck, so I'm reluctant to go too big too early, but at the same time, it is very exciting to see.
It is, he's always going to be a player. It's his first season. This is his breakthrough football season. He's not played professional football at any level before this. And so we're really seeing the start of something. Now, it's up to Sidney Peck himself about how far that goes. We're seeing the excitement. We're seeing the freshness, that real raw ability that drives a player to the front of your mind. What he's got to do now is the hard work. It's the maintaining these levels week after week, season after season. It's when it starts getting a little bit harder, when your legs are tired, when you're not quite sure whether or not your team's good enough. If you're losing every week rather than winning every week, can he dig it out at that point? That's going to be the bits that start to define his career. And hopefully, he'll have the opportunity to really develop that side of his game with United. And he'll grow with us as we obviously try and make ourselves a more established Premier League team rather than just a yo-yo. But if he gets his head in the right place, if he really focuses himself and he's got the hard work that, players have to put in, then I really do have high hopes for him. But you're right to sort of just temper it. It's his breakthrough season. And there is, questions still to be answered for him when he's not in a team that's performing as well as United are.
Yeah, absolutely. Extremely exciting start, I think, to his senior career, Sidney Peck. Centre half, Oli. Interesting area for Sheffield United because I know that you felt like there was a bit of a worry that Sheff United hadn't replaced Harry Souttar because of his aerial dominance and physicality and the challenges that have been provided with Anel Ahmedhodzic and Jack Robinson and the like being of a slightly different profile. Are we feeling a little bit more secure in that position of central defence at the moment, or still a bit of a nagging concern?
It's a nagging concern. It's a nagging doubt that's always at the back of your mind. And it's one of those that doesn't show up every week. And so I think the way I describe Jack Robinson and Anel as a partnership, I think they're a top 6 championship partnership. That's where I think they lie. I think ultimately you've got a really good championship defender in Anel, and you've got a decent to almost brilliant championship defender in Jack Robinson. I love his work ethic. I love the way that he tries to play. I love the fact that he's not scared to throw himself into a tackle and really sort of be a leader on the pitch, bringing other people along with him. But we have seen at times this season, I'm thinking Sunderland away, for example. It's not the only one, but it's the most glaring, where he's got mistakes in him. The ball comes to him, particularly a high ball that's coming down to him, and he's got to make a decision. Do you head it or do you control it? And you've got the time to think about it and make that decision. That's when he makes his mistakes. That's when he starts to sort of be caught in two minds, take a bad touch, let the defence in, let the opposition get through. And we've seen him do that time and time again now. I've seen the Jack Robinson mistake happen 6, 7, 8 times over the last 3-4 seasons. It's something that you just have to understand is in his game. And while it doesn't happen every week, it happens often enough that it's a little bit of a problem. And I still have a nagging doubt that at some point between now and the end of this season, he will have one of those moments. He's not going to be faultless for the next 7 games. That's just not how his style is. He's not got that consistency for 7 games in a row to say, I'm making no mistakes, no fault football. He can't do it. And so it's about how we're going to work around that. I think we've found a plan for scoring goals quite consistently now. We are more likely to score 2-3 goals than we were earlier in the season. And that is the difference, because I'm not as concerned about the 2 centre-halves, because actually I think now we might actually be willing to say to somebody, fine, we'll score more than you. We might give you 1. We might concede a goal a game, but we might also score 2 a game. And that feels like something that's completely different to what we'd seen earlier in the season. There's a lot more creativity in the team. And with Tyrese Campbell on this kind of form, and well, with Rhian Brewster on this kind of form, Gab, with Rhian Brewster.
I know, yeah. Well, do you know what? I do feel, because of Brewster's sort of unexpected rising, isn't it really odd, Ollie, that we thought that in January the solution to Sheffield United's goal scoring troubles would be a strong word, but question mark perhaps. Tom Cannon was going to be the answer, and Ben Brereton Diaz were going to be the answer. And instead of it being those 2, really it's been Rhian Brewster and Tyrese Campbell. Isn't that mad? How it sometimes works like that.
Yeah, it's bizarre how it's worked. You know, it's almost taken us spending £12 million on somebody else to remind Rhian Brewster that he's supposed to be scoring goals and play in that position. You know. But I think the serious answer is actually Rhian Brewster looks fit. Like, that's the thing, is that actually, I think back over the last 5 years of watching United with Rhian Brewster playing for us, and he's never looked fast or particularly involved. He's always looked on the periphery of a game, waiting for a pass, waiting for it to come. Whereas all of a sudden now he looks fit, he looks proactive, he wants to be involved, he's asking for the ball, he's trying to sort of play some of those passes. And yeah, I wonder if it is just that for the first time in a long time, he's actually fully fit. And he's capable.
Ollie, maybe when I bet you that he would score against Norwich City, I was 2 years ahead of the curve.
That's it, exactly. You were just 2 years away from being absolutely spot on, Gab. And it's utterly bizarre how it's happened. But it's 2 goals and an assist in his last 3 games, so a goal contribution in every game he's played over the last 3. And yeah, for the season, he's up to 7 goal contributions.
I mean, in a way, I am shocked by it because his form for Sheffield United over the previous 3 years or so, possibly more than that, didn't suggest that this was coming. At the same time, this is somebody who came through. Now, it's either Liverpool or Chelsea's academy, and then
Chelsea and then to Liverpool.
Thank you. So he's been signed by both clubs at youth level, and he played for Steve Cooper for England's, was it under 17s, the World Cup winning squad? Or was it? Yeah, so
under 19s.
Under 19s as well. So this is somebody who had really high pedigree at youth level, and for some reason it didn't quite translate at senior level initially. And that might have been due to a variety of factors. It's very difficult to say from an observational capacity. So in the one sense, yes, we can be shocked by it based on his club senior football form, but in another way, maybe we shouldn't be that stunned by it given his youth sort of pedigree.
He always had it in him. That's the thing for Brewster, is that he always had it in him. At Swansea, when he really, he had a fantastic half a season there, scoring goals consistently at this level. And you do wonder, was that the last time he was properly fit? Was that the last time that we saw a fully fit Rhian Brewster playing football? If you want to know, though, Gab, why we'd start to doubt, would it ever happen? Is he capable of doing it? Rhian Brewster is still, to this day, scored more goals for Swansea than he has for Sheffield United. That's the bit that you're really working your way through and trying to sort of align in your mind. It's been 5 years. We signed him in 2020. That sort of COVID summer transfer window is when he joined Sheffield United. And so...
Was it 8 goals he saw, something like that he scored for Swansea in half a season? Because it wasn't like... I don't think
11.
he got it. You are 7.
He got 11 for Swansea.
Oh,
11 in 22.
Right, okay.
He's currently on... I think it's 9 in 110 for United.
Right, okay.
Great record. Great player. But I do wonder as well about... I think it is about fitness. I think that's a key part of it. But as well, confidence. What we've just seen is... we beat... It's hard to sort of quantify it in terms of the wider football because it sounds petty, but he's just scored the winner at Hillsborough in front of the Wednesday Cop. Like, he's had that moment, a moment of just winning a game, securing the double over United's rivals, a really huge moment that really just buys you into the fans. Wilder's also been talking, I think it was over the international break, he says that United's leadership group, and Rhian Brewster is a key man in United's leadership group. He's one of the players because he's been here longer than just about anybody else. In terms of our longest serving players, Rhian Brewster is right up towards the top of that list right now. And so they talk about him as a leader. All the lads in the dressing room say that he's just brilliant to be around. He's always sort of front and centre. Whether he's playing, whether he's on the bench, whether he's injured, he's always right at the front of the players, celebrating a win, jumping around, sort of being part of that journey. And he's also carried the weight of George Baldock this season almost. Whenever we pull out, whenever we're celebrating George Baldock this season, it's Rhian Brewster who's got Baldock's shirt, carrying it around for the fans, who's taking that emotional weight. And it does seem like he really is adapted well to the leadership role he's got. He seems like he's a great person to have around the group who's sort of now really starting to come into his own. It's been time. It's been long enough. But it is great to see. And having a player like that in form and fit could be a difference maker between now and the end of the season. And if you'd have told me that I was saying that a month ago, I would have laughed at you, and I would have given you the biggest odds in the world that I would never once say, maybe Rhian Brewster is going to be the player that fires us up. But all of a sudden, it looks like there's a chance.
Yeah. I think you've certainly got options now as well, which is great in those attacking areas, and you've got the means to change games that aren't going your way. Like having, even though Tom Cannon and Brereton Diaz are yet to really catch fire, they're still great options to have, up your sleeve at Championship level. So I think that's a really exciting aspect as well.
It is. If you think about our attack, though, we start with Harmer, Brewster, Brereton Diaz, Campbell. And if it's not working, that can very quickly become Raksake, O'Hare, Kiefer Moore, Tom Cannon. And suddenly you're talking about a depth in terms of our striking options that sounds all right to me. If you said to me, oh, you've got Jez Raksake coming off bench for 15 minutes to run at a tired defender. Yeah, all right. I'll take that deal. Go on. Who else have we got? Oh, Callum O'Hare's going to come on and he's going to press them to death. Yeah, fine. I'll take that. Who's going to be a centre forward? Well, you can either do Kiefer Moore and play it long one to the big man, or you can have Tom Cannon and just try and get him a chance. Can't complain at that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I even think, Brereton Diaz, you've got as a kind of inside forward option as well, on either side, as well as playing up top. So I think there's a lovely flexibility to go with that. Gustavo Harmer, then, Ollie. What a lovely free kick that was on Friday night. Just inch perfect, wasn't it?
Gab, I could barely believe it. Honestly, I was sat in the ground and I just could not believe when he hit it. I was like, it felt like one of them, in front of the Coventry fans against his old team. But everyone, as he lined it up, everyone kind of went, what do you think? Is he gonna? Surely not. And he just hit it perfectly. Like, you can't ask for any more. Like, I do genuinely believe that Gustavo Harmer is the best player in the Championship. I don't think there is a better footballer than Gustavo Harmer. I think you can argue whether United have got the most out of him playing him as a left winger and whether or not we've limited the amount of sort of control he's been able to exert over a game. But I think as a pure footballer, there's not going to be... Maybe there's an argument for other players. Tanaka, for example, I know Leeds fans will be screaming about. But
or Trafford, even if you're going for goalkeepers.
I'd rather have Michael Cooper.
To be fair, actually, on that point, I think Trafford probably benefits from having Stev and Egan Riley in front of him, which I think is a better centre-back pairing than Anel and...
Yeah, to be honest, I'm going to say this as I believe this is a compliment to Burnley. Their fans might completely disagree as to whether this is the case. I think if we swapped keepers, Burnley would probably be in just about the same position, chasing the top two, have around 81 points. United would be about 6th. That's the difference, because I genuinely believe Michael Cooper makes a huge difference to the confidence of our defenders in front of him, the confidence of sort of everything that runs through United. Whereas I think he's just a net positive. I think he saves United points. I think Burnley just don't give the chances away. I think you could put me in their net, and at this stage, I'd probably have a pretty decent defensive record. And I've not played it net for 20 years, Gab. I'm not that good. I used to be all right, but we all used to be all right.
Wow, interesting. Okay, that's a strong take. So you think Michael Cooper, just for the way that he dominates and the communication, and because I think as shot stoppers, I would say Trafford and Cooper are pretty similar, but maybe in terms of experience.
Obviously, there is an element to I don't watch James Trafford every week,
of course.
So I don't see everything that he does, and I might miss parts of his game that he's really actually fantastic at. But I see Michael Cooper every week. We've got a defence that really... Robinson and Ahmedodzic are both, about 6'2"? Oh, Ahmedodzic is. Robinson will be smaller than that. He might be 5'11", 6'1".
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He's not a big defender. And yet, balls into the box, Cooper just comes out and catches every one. He says to him, don't worry about it. We've lost Harry Suter. I'll take care of these situations.
Yeah.
I will come out, I'll catch it, I'll claim it, I'll punch it. I
That's
will
interesting,
deal
actually,
with
Ollie, isn't it? Yeah, because if Harry Souttar, first half of the season, Harry Souttar heads everything out of the penalty area. He doesn't really need to be as dominant in terms of aerial commanding of the area. However, if you've got Anel and Robinson in front of you, that becomes a much more important part of his game, and he's passed the test consistently.
Huge part of his game. It's exactly what he's got to do, and he does it so consistently. His shot stopping, obviously, is outstanding. I really do think that Michael Cooper is a massive part of why United are where they are. I think I saw the Bladesman on Twitter, fantastic Twitter account, goes through all our interviews and does a player of the match sort of vote at the end of every game. And I think based on the player of the match votes, Michael Cooper is currently United's player of the season on those. He's won player of the match more than anybody else. He's won more accumulated votes than anybody else. He really is a standout player.
Would you give him player of the year over Gus Harmer if you were voting now?
If I was voting today, would I give I might do, yeah.
Yeah.
It's those two at the debate, really. But I think Michael Cooper is more consistent. Like, I think Gus Harmer is the best player in the league. But we've not used him to the full of his ability. Michael Cooper, we've used to the max of his ability, and he's been outstanding.
That's what I think, because I think Gus Harmer also has, if we're talking best players in the Championship, Gus Harmer has that pedigree from this brilliant work that he did at Coventry City over, was it 4 years? Whereas, and he's been brilliant this season, slightly out of position, whereas, the goalkeeper's the goalkeeper. So, comment here from Scott saying Gab in shock, 100% expects us mid-table, and his favourite Sunderland have fallen off. Yeah, it's true. Wilder has done a hell of a job. Yes, he has. I thought Sheffield United were more likely to do a Luton this season than Luton, and Luton have done a than Luton, and Sheffield United have done a Luton. Yeah. So yeah, got that completely wrong. But so well done to Sheffield United. I've got to eat my humble pie there.
I remind him every week, Scott. Don't worry about it. I remind him every week.
Absolutely, yeah. I'd be disappointed if you didn't. But Scott's also got a question for you, Ollie. When Arblaster comes back, who are you starting in the two? Tough choice with Peck, Sousa, Arblaster, and Dave. I'm going to give you a sort of pre-answer to this. I don't think you change it initially. I think you put Arblaster on the bench and strengthen the squad that way.
I think it's a truly... I've been having this debate. Interestingly enough, obviously, I went round to my mum's yesterday to see my mum. My uncle were there, my dad were there. We were all sat together and we had this exact debate where we were talking about Oli Arblaster's fit in the summer. What's your starting two? Sousa and Peck? Is it Arblaster and Peck? Is it... do you have to sign a new central midfielder? Like, what's the plan in terms of what United should look like next season? I think that this might be an unpopular opinion, but I think Sidney Peck's earned the shirt.
Yeah.
I think Sidney Peck has done so much this season in terms of his performance level, in terms of the way that he has driven United forward, in the way that he has just come into this team and made that position his own, that it's hard to take the shirt away from him that I think he's earned. Yeah. I think long-term, Oli Arblaster will have a better Sheffield United career than Sidney Peck.
Oh my God, Oli, I was literally just about to say that same thing. I was thinking Oli Arblaster might be, was it Nick Montgomery who you had, who was this kind of long-serving midfielder who was sort of a bit of a destroyer, all-action destroyer type. I think Oli Arblaster's got that kind of vibe to him where I think he's going to be a Sheffield United stalwart who knows what it takes to play at the lane. I think he's going to be a long-term Sheffield United captain. I think he's going to have that affinity with the fans. I think, wouldn't shock me if he became a one-club man. Whereas I think Sidney Peck maybe has a bit more technical proficiency to make that next step, perhaps.
I think it's such a difficult one. If he'd never got injured, Oli Arblaster would, for my money, up until his point of his injury, was having a fantastic season. He looked a real player, last season in the Premier League. He came into United's team and, in an awful football team, let's be fair. But in an absolutely atrocious Premier League team, he stood out. He was the player who was saying, no, pick me. I'll take the responsibility. I'll be the leader this team needs. So I really don't want to disrespect Oli Arblaster because I think he's fantastic. I agree. I think he's a Sheffield United captain. In fact, as soon as he comes back into the starting 11, he will be the captain. he'll immediately pick up that armband and drive us forward. But at this moment in time, Oli Arblaster's not played that much football. Exactly the same as I just said about City Peck. Oli Arblaster's football is half a season with Port Vale, sort of half a season in a really, really poor Premier League team, and then 10 games in a top championship team. And that's not enough to fully gauge his level. He's also had a really serious injury, and you have no idea how a young player is going to come back and respond to an injury that is that severe. So it's really difficult to judge. But for me, gun to my head today, if both were fit and available, I think it's City Peck's shirt.
Yeah, absolutely. I've got a vision of 2045. Oli Arblaster might be Sheff United manager one day. He could be the next, lining him up to be the next Chris Wilder.
Well, you've got Chris Wilder. He's going to hand it over to Billy.
Yeah, of course.
Billy's going to do it with Jagielka as his assistant manager. And when Billy's ready to go off and manage England, Arblaster can then be the next United manager.
You worked out perfectly, Ollie.
Perfect. We all know what's going to happen.
The next 30 years of Sheffield United, you've mapped it out brilliantly.
Exactly. And in that time, we've won 17 Premier Leagues and 3 Champions Leagues. You know, it's going to be brilliant.
Absolutely, yeah. Moving it back to reality. I know, yeah. Where am I? I wanted to talk about Hamza Choudhury because I don't know if I've ever told you this, Ollie. I once saw Hamza Choudhury play for Burton Albion in 2016. He was on loan there from Leicester, and there was a first half of a game against Gillingham, penultimate game of the season. This was a big one for Burton to win a historic promotion from League One under Nigel Clough. And Hamza Choudhury, I think he made 8 tackles in the first half of that game. It was one of the best ball-winning performances I've ever seen at that level, and that's always stuck with me. And I'm not surprised that he's gone on to be a really useful player, not only in the Premier League with Leicester, but also winning the Championship title with them, filling in as an inverted right back for them last season when Ricardo Pereira was unavailable, and then also doing a brilliant job for your lot in midfield on Friday night.
I love him. Just love him. There is just something about, and I agree. So I first saw him 2019, second game of the season at Bramall Lane. We played Leicester. I think they might have beat us 3-0, something like that. This was the all-conquering Chris Wilder Sheffield United team with us overlapping centre halves. As good as we were, they turned up at Bramall Lane and turned us over. And so much of that came from the performance of this young lad no one had ever seen before, but he stood out because he got a big afro and he really looked. You're like, he's going to go right to the top. And it was Choudhury. And effectively, his game was he tackled anything that moved, anything that came in his area of the pitch. He had the ball. It didn't matter who you were, what you were doing. He got the ball off you every single time. And it's amazing to see him now in a United shirt. And you can see how he does it because he does it consistently every game. He starts deeper. He waits for someone to come and it almost just triggers him into action. And he doesn't miss a tackle. If he decides he's going to tackle you, he just gets the ball off you. If he decides he's going to block your shot, block your pass, block your cross, he just blocks it. It's almost like I was watching him specifically against Coventry the other day. He must have blocked 5, 6 shots, crosses, all around the edge of United's box, just stopping it ever being able to come in to really create a chance. He made sure there was absolutely no service to Haji Wright because whenever they were trying to find a pass to him, he was in the way every single time. And I don't think I've ever seen a more effective tackler in the game. I mean, I'm looking at his stats now, and he's played 10 games so far for United this season. And in his sort of per 90 stats, he's ranked in the top 5% of all midfielders for the defensive actions. Like, it's just insane how much he just dominates that position. Now, there are limitations to his game. He's not going to drive you forward. He's not somebody who's going to get the ball and take you forward. You know, he's not going to shoot. He's not going to create chances. He isn't going to be that fully rounded midfielder you need. But if United are going to get promoted, we have to change a little bit the way we play. We will no longer be playing 4-2-3-1. We'll more likely be playing 4-3-3 or something, maybe 4-5-1. All of a sudden, the role of Hamza Choudhury becomes almost vital to that team. Because if you've got a ball winner who you can rely on to always win the ball in the centre of midfield, all he's got to do is win it and pass it to Gustavo Harmer. That's going to be his entire game. So I think if we are going to get promoted, he's almost one of the most important signings we could make because he changes us from a team that's got a good midfield, but that can sort of be bypassed into a team who've got one of the most sort of tackler, ball dominant players that you're going to get. And all of a sudden, they have to find a way to get around Choudhury. And that then means that Sousa, that Peck, that Arblaster, whoever else is partnering them in that sort of midfield three, have a much easier job in terms of just being a disruptor rather than being relied on to win the ball every time. And so I think the best is yet to come for Choudhury for me, because I think he's got a huge role to play for a team that's at the bottom end of the Premier League. But yeah, I like him a lot. I really do. He just stands out in everything that he does at the minute.
I'm pretty sure you targeted him as a potential Sheffield United signing before he actually signed. So get you on the scouting team, I think.
That's it. I think they should, because, I watch a lot of football and I pick out the best. I first picked him out. To be fair, it's hard to really claim it for yourself when what you actually saw was like, I think it was England's under-21s captain dominating a game in the Premier League, and I went, we'll have him. He'll be all right. And then 5 years later, we signed him. So,
Nice. I wanted to talk to you about, we touched on Gustavo Harmer. I wanted to touch on his relationship with Harrison Burrows down that left side, because Burrows has made an impact on me with his attacking runs. Just wondering how you feel he's balanced that with, obviously, the defensive aspect of the game.
Been really impressed with Burrows this season. I wasn't sure how he was going to step up. I thought if you were signing Harrison Burrows, you play a back five. You play three centre halves, and then you've got Harrison Burrows in his position, driving you forward and really sort of being that wing back that we've got so familiar with United having, that it almost felt natural that we'd signed him. And of course he was going to play as our left wing back. But actually his defensive ability has really come on leaps and bounds. I think one thing that he's got to watch out for, especially next season if we're in the Premier League, I always have to add that caveat. Assume if I ever mention the Premier League, I'm saying if. If we're in the Premier League next season, one thing he will have to watch out for with VAR is that he blocks crosses with his arms in all kinds of positions. And he's got to watch out for that, because he's almost a walking penalty merchant trying to block.
Doing YMCA.
He's like that. Come on, try and get past me, lads. Glad I did that. It's a really proud moment. Hi, Mum. But yeah, it's very much one of those where his defending's just come on and come on and come on. And he's such a strong part of that team now. But going forwards is where he catches the eye. And it's a really interesting dynamic between him and Harmer, because Harmer I'd say Harmer does about 60% of a job defensively. Like, there are moments where you'll not see anybody run harder on the entire pitch. He will sprint from one end to the other to cover his fullback to make sure he gets there. And then about 30-40% of the time, he'll kind of go, nah, somebody else is going to pick that up. And you'll see Peck or Sousa or Choudhury come charging over, because Harmer's just like, not for me, this one. Somebody else is doing that. And sometimes he'll be close enough that instead of chasing him all the way back, he'll just kick him. He'll just pick up a booking, and he'll just be like, oh, you passed, mate? Nah, can't. I'm not running, so I'll just kick you.
It's like making a salad when your mum cooks.
Exactly.
You think about 30% of it.
About 30% of it, and the rest of it. So they're an interesting pair defensively, and obviously Harmer, he doesn't do that, and so it does mean that some of those other defenders come in. But going forwards, it's really interesting the way United play, because Harmer almost inverts. Harmer just moves himself into the centre, stands next to Callum O'Hare, or what is now Rhian Brewster, and he pulls the defender with him. You can't leave Gustavo Harmer unmarked. So either the right back either has to go with him and follow him into the middle, or he has to occupy one of the centre halves who has to come and mark him, and then Campbell's got a spare man, or Brewster's got a spare man. So it's really intelligent movement. And generally what that means is that there's just sort of 30% of the pitch that Burrows can just charge into. And he's got all that time, all that space. He can get down his wing whenever he wants to, because Harmer's dragged his man away and created all the space. So I think it works really well. And with Tyrese Campbell, actually, he's the other sort of most important key of the cog almost, because Harmer moves in, Burrows gets all the space, and Campbell runs the channel. So suddenly you've got your right back in the centre, you've got your centre half out on the left wing, and United have got all this kind of space through the chaos that they've started to create through that movement. So yeah, it's a really dynamic part of the pitch, but it's great to watch. And actually seeing that movement makes you realise how much they are working on this in training, how much this is just a repeated pattern to really try and create chances for United.
Yeah, certainly did that really well on Friday night. What's your how are you feeling about the running then, Ollie, with Leeds and Burnley? I mean, it looked after those back-to-back wins for Leeds over Sunderland and yourselves that they were going to run clear by 10, 15 points. Hasn't happened like that. They've dropped a lot of points since then, including at home to Swansea when they weren't expected to drop points. So again, I mean, it's wide open.
Well, isn't it? Monday, the 10th of March, 2025, Gab. We sat together filming Sportsman Untitled.
You're gone.
They turned to me. They all turned to me and they said, "Oh, tell me what's going to happen for the top two." And I said, Burnley will win the league. Sheffield United will finish second. Leeds are going to drop. Because the Reds are going to go and they're going to just start to falter just a little bit. Because when it gets to March and Joy Division starts playing, they start getting nervy. And you've seen it come through in these performances. Everybody laughed at me around that table that day, if I remember correctly. I was laughed at, people.
Surely
and now,
not, Ollie.
All of a sudden, everyone's starting to think, wait a minute, that might...
Maybe that Oli Mann had a point.
Maybe Ollie's not stupid. And no one's ever said that before.
It was so a very odd feeling, Ollie.
Yeah, it feels weird, actually. Ollie is stupid. There must be something else that's happening here. Because that's not it. But yeah, so I'm feeling... I don't want to say confident, because there's so much that can change and go wrong. But United's two hardest games after the international break were Coventry at home, Burnley away. We've got through one of those games and won it. We've not just come through it unscathed, we've come through it in a better position than we were going into it. And I didn't think there was any chance that would happen. I thought United would probably lose to Coventry and I'd be sat here with us in third. Instead, we're 2 points clear at the top. And, you know, we've got a good chance. I'm not willing to say we 100% will do it, but I'm now starting to think about us not just winning promotion, but winning the league. And particularly 2 months ago, 3 months ago, that wasn't anywhere near my mind. I didn't think we'd stand much of a chance in that. And suddenly, we're not just the front runners, but we're in arguably the best form, equal with Burnley. You've got Leeds who have dropped, I think, 7 points in the last 5 games. They've got to find a way to sort themselves out, especially if, well, I mean, if they're going to keep playing Melier, then us and Burnley might as well start popping champagne corks now, because if he's going to be, like, what are they?
It feels like that. And I think, again, like at this stage of the season, the goalkeeper becomes increasingly important, because you want to have that. It's like that security, because it's such a high pressure part of the season anyway. If you amplify the pressure even more by having a goalkeeper that you're not comfortable with, I think that creates a lot of chaos. So I think Meslier has become, it used to be like one weakness to Leeds, like the one sort of chink in Leeds' armour, but I think it's magnified to become a bigger and bigger issue for them. And I think that's by miles the best team in the league in terms of outfield. And I think that's just the one thing that's good.
It's, I have talked a lot about how United to this point have, by all of the sort of, how many games have you won? Well, United have won the most. How many points have you got? United have got the most. Like, we have been the most effective, the most efficient, the most sort of consistent football team in the Championship. But I don't think anybody who's watched a lot of football would say anything other than Leeds are the best team in this division. Yeah. They've just got this fatal flaw, which is the goalkeeper. The one on Saturday, that first goal, I think is one of the worst I've ever seen at Championship level. I cannot fathom what's gone through his head when he's unmarked, stood on his own, just trying to catch a ball, and he's dropped it at the striker's feet. It makes no sense. But other than that now, you can feel it creeping through the rest of their team. They're just starting to have a feeling that they're not confident. It wasn't a good performance from them on Saturday. They felt like they might just about squeak their way through it, win 2-1, which is what United would have done. I have no doubt that in that situation, we play against Swansea, we have an off day, we don't play very well, we're under a bit of pressure, we win 2-1.
Yeah.
Because we've done it week in, week out, whereas Leeds have to play well to win. Yeah. And it's just starting to look like the worries about the goalkeeper, the worries about some of those other positions are creeping in. And so I'm not ruling them out. They've got an easy run in. They've got the best team. Ultimately, they should be the team that go on and win promotion.
Yeah.
But right now, they are the ones with the biggest question mark next to the name, because I think United and Burnley will continue to be consistent. Will not win every game, will not win 95%. We might only get between us another 10 points, 12 points, but that gets both teams to 95. So the question for Leeds is, you know what you've got to do. You've got to go out there. You've got to win 6 games of football. You'll be promoted if you can do it. The question is whether or not they can. And at the minute, they don't look like a team that will.
Absolutely. Matt Johnson from Wednesday Daylight Die says, great chat. Get my words out properly. Great chat, gents. Shame about Oli's allegiances, but you can't deny he does talk an awful lot of sense.
Not sure about that.
On the back of this current chat, can I ask who has been, in his opinions, the best signing for them lot? Probably for
them lot. Let's see. There's 2 candidates for me. There's 2 real standouts who jump out to the front of your mind, and it depends what we're judging. For me, the answer is Michael Cooper. Michael Cooper is undoubtedly, I think, probably not just being our signing of the season. I think there's an argument he's signing of the season in the Championship. It's £2 million. We've spent £2 million on a goalkeeper who I think we could sell now for 10 times that, and somebody in the Premier League will snap him up without even thinking about it. I think we've got a future England goalkeeper, and we've basically robbed Plymouth to try and get him out of them for that kind of price. So he is, for me, the number 1 signing. But obviously, I think an honourable mention to a free transfer of Tyrese Campbell has to be sort of thrown in there as well. We're talking about a player who I believe has all of the tools, all of the skills to go on and play in the Premier League and to be effective in the Premier League. And I do think he's probably one of the biggest difference makers we've got at the minute.
Absolutely. Well, just to round it off, my sort of hot take at the moment is I would actually make Burnley promotion favourites, because I think they've probably got the fewest question marks over them, because they don't, and I find it strange saying this, because for much of the season I've questioned them on sustainability grounds, but since Marcus Edwards came in, they've actually, attacking wise, they've gone from scoring 1 goal a game roughly to 2 goals a game. So actually going forward, they're very strong, and they look like they can create chances at a much stronger rate than they used to be able to, while defensively they've still got that resilience and this incredible defensive record. So for me, I would make Burnley my favourites for the title. That's where I'm at. So, Oli, been great to have you on. I know you've got another podcast to shoot off, so we're off to. So thanks so much for joining us, and all the best to the Blades for the weekend.
Yeah, fingers crossed.
Absolutely. All right. Well, thanks everyone for watching, and we'll see you again for another Championship podcast next week. But until then, get yourself subscribed to EFL Debate on YouTube and on Spotify.